Good morning. This is the Blaine's Roll webcast that is found each week on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. You can also find us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and you can get further information about us at my website, which is behind me, blainesworld.net. I'm the host, Blaine Greenfield, and I'm here in my Zoom studio in lovely downtown Fairview, North Carolina. Each week, we focus on positive news and information about people and organizations in both Western North Carolina and throughout the country. And toward that end, it's my pleasure to introduce, having trouble with the words today, Debbie Sprouse, who's Executive Director at Meals on Wheels, Asheville and Buncombe County, for being my guest. And Debbie, you can feel free to wave to all your fans and friends who are watching this.
Hi.
Okay, and this is the amazing Debbie Sprouse, who serves as the Executive Director of Meals on Wheels of Asheville and Buncombe County. And she heads um, her efforts to make sure that no senior in our community goes hungry or forgotten. With her commitment to special impact in more than 20 years in nonprofit leadership, Debbie works closely with staff volunteers and community partners to support the well-being of older adults throughout the nutrition um, community and overall Buncombe County. Anyway, Debbie, welcome again. Had you on a couple while ago. The question I always ask, we'll do just recap. As a kid, you grew up where?
Grew up in Asheville.
Oh, you did. And so
Yes.
you stayed in Asheville?
Actually, I'm what you might call a military brat. So I had a parent who was in the armed forces, and we did travel to places like Okinawa. Spent several years in Okinawa, which was a great experience as a young teenager. But Asheville has always been home. So this is now where my home base is.
So when you were traveling throughout the country, as throughout the world as a kid, did you always know you wanted to be head of a nonprofit organization at that point in time?
No,
Yeah.
no.
What did you want to be as a kid?
It's really interesting. I wanted to be a veterinarian because I had a really huge love for animals, and I still do. But I discovered as I got older that there was too much heartache and heartbreak involved with that. So I kind of focused on helping people in need. And so that's kind of what led me to being here with Meals on Wheels.
It's funny too. It's not our thrust of our discussion today, but animals have real problems, some of them with meals as well, food for animals. And I guess it's tough that when there are cutbacks, and we'll talk about the cutbacks in a second, that animals are often one of the first to be forgotten about in some respects.
Absolutely.
But let's concentrate though on Meals on Wheels. So in terms of being in the Asheville area, when did you come on board?
So I've been with Meals on Wheels for the last 11 years. I just celebrated my anniversary this month.
Okay, well, congratulations.
Thank
And
you.
so being with the group for the last 7 years, how did you get involved in the first place with Meals on Wheels?
I actually had worked in the nonprofit field with Mission Hospital for 20 plus years.
Wait,
And
excuse me a second. I find that hard to believe. You started what, at the age of 7? Was that
yes, thank
or
you. Very young.
the youngest ever volunteer with Mission Hospital, employee in Mission Hospital? So you were with them for 20 years. In what capacity?
I served as the wellness coordinator, and
Okay.
then I moved to working in their foundation, which is where I was introduced to fundraising and community engagement and marketing. And I really loved it. But the landscape at Mission was changing, and they were going to be moving from a nonprofit health system to a for-profit health system. So there would no longer really be a role for the foundation. And so I found an opportunity here with Meals on Wheels.
And I can't believe that was what, already like 11 years ago or 10 years
Yes,
ago?
yes.
I find it hard to believe, as you're saying it, taking one of the great hospitals, I thought, and one of the reasons we moved to Asheville, till I don't quite get why you want a hospital be a profit-making institution, but that's just me. So then the timing was absolutely perfect. So when it was making the transition, that's when you came over to Meals on Wheels.
Exactly. They were looking for a development director. So I started my role at Meals on Wheels as the fundraiser, and then found myself with, able to have the opportunity to serve as the executive director. And I've been doing that for the last 5 years, and that happened right at the cusp of COVID. So it's been quite challenging to navigate this nonprofit through not only COVID, but then, most recently the hurricane.
So when you started coming on board at Meals and Wells, we should go from the top, I guess, for the benefit of folks who don't know what it is. I think he can kind of figure it out. But what exactly is Meals and Wheels?
So we are very focused on providing nutritious meals, friendly visits, and wellness checks on the older adult population that is considered homebound. We're currently serving over 600 seniors across Buncombe County, and those seniors are trying to age comfortably in place. Many of them live alone. They face mobility and health issues that make it difficult for them to access food on a regular basis. So if you think about Buncombe County, we have over 70,000 older adults who are age 60 and older, and that counts for about 30% of our population. So there's a lot of seniors in Buncombe County, not all of whom are homebound, but there certainly is a growing population of homebound seniors who really need services like Meals on Wheels.
So is that the age factor that in terms of being qualified to work with Meals and Wheels, is it over 60, over a certain age?
Yes, 60 and above. And then we're looking for those that have limited driving ability or not driving at all, or they have mobility issues that make it difficult for them to stand for periods of time to prepare meals and do things like walking through the grocery store.
So very cool. So if they hook in with Meals on Wheels, and we'll talk about it in just a second, what does that get them then?
So if they hook up with Meals on Wheels, what they get is 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, we deliver a prepared nutritious meal that is being delivered by a volunteer. And that volunteer is offering a few moments of companionship, really connecting those seniors with community. And we're also just checking in to make sure that that they're doing okay, that they have the resources that they need to continue to live independently. And if you think about national statistics, 1 in 2 seniors who live alone can't afford their basic needs. Another 13 million seniors are considered food insecure, and those two things really jeopardize a senior's ability to remain living independently. And what we know is it's so much better for a senior's well-being if they can continue to live independently, but it's also more cost effective than looking at institutional care or
And
assisted living.
it's also pretty nice then, so that people are still staying in their homes, but at least they're getting not only a meal, but explain what you just mentioned, which I think is really cool, that they're also getting the interaction, I guess, that somebody comes and then do they spend 5 minutes with the person? Is there a time limit they're supposed to spend?
That's a great question. We've got like 47 different meal delivery routes that go across Buncombe County. So that's 47 different routes each weekday that's covering all 660 square miles of Buncombe County. Those volunteers have up to 16 seniors on their route. And routes are obviously geographically located, Arden and Avery's Creek, Fairview, Swannanoa. We put seniors who lived close in one area together on a route so that we're not having a volunteer out there for hours trying to make their meal deliveries. But that volunteer does have the opportunity really to spend upwards of 5 minutes with a senior to just check in and say, how are you doing? Are things going well? It's good to see you. Oh, and they get to meet the pets. We talked about animals. We also provide pet food for our seniors' animals. So
Oh,
that's a
they,
great way to connect with seniors is through their pets. And so we talked a lot about the nutritious meals. We talk about those friendly visits that those volunteers are making. But what we're doing is we're alleviating food insecurity and hunger and promoting nutrition, but we're also helping to alleviate isolation. And for us in Buncombe County, with those 47 meal delivery routes, only 14 of them are actually in the Asheville area. The remaining routes are all more rural. And as you become more rural, you have less opportunities for socialization, less opportunities to access care, That's why these volunteers are such a critical component to the program because they really are our eyes and ears with our meal delivery program. They are able then to tell us, "Oh, I visited with Mrs. Smith today, and she really is having difficulty with XYZ." Once we know what those issues are, then we can work directly with the senior and perhaps their family to address what those needs are. Because there's a lot of aging agencies that we can connect seniors with so that they continue to get that wraparound support that keeps them living independently.
And you mentioned, Debbie, that they go out, and so it's once a day on these different routes. Is there a lunch meal? Is it a dinner meal? And then I'm also curious, how do you get the food?
Great question. So we operate just like a restaurant or a catering business would operate. We have a two-story building on Victoria Road, and on the main level is a nice, beautiful commercial kitchen. So we have our own dedicated staff that order, cook, prepare, and pack meals. And we do that Monday through Friday. We're following a menu that operates, it's a 6 week menu, so it's like 30 different meals. And those menus are created in cooperation with a registered dietitian because we want to make sure that the meals we are offering meet the nutritional needs of our seniors. So not only are we trying to get them a prepared meal, but we want to make sure that they're getting the nutritional value that they need. In case that's the only meal they're eating for the day, we want to make sure we pack the most punch.
Is that a lunch or dinner?
So it's a lunchtime meal. So we're here very early, getting meals prepared and packed, and then volunteers show up as early as 9 a.m. to start with the meal deliveries so that all seniors throughout Buncombe County have a nice, warm, hot lunchtime meal.
Do they have a choice on the food at all, or it's whatever you're serving that day?
Yes, because it's such a large amount, we do kind of follow our own menu, and I do get rave reviews from our seniors and our volunteers that the food is great.
Is it really? Okay, that's exciting when they get that. So let's talk about then this the whole operation is pretty complex when you think about it. That you have people cooking the stuff and making the stuff, and you got to get delivered. So how many volunteers do you have just in the delivery part of this?
That is a great question. So we have 47 different meal delivery routes each weekday. 91% of those routes are done by volunteers. So I believe that's probably 44 meal delivery routes. So every weekday, I need 44 volunteers here ready to make those deliveries. And if you add that up, it's a little over 200 volunteers a week.
Okay. And I guess it's a pretty big commitment, which we'll talk about. But what happens, I guess, does from time to time, if somebody gets sick or a volunteer doesn't show up, do you have a backup on that?
I'm again, our volunteer needs are, I'm going to call it threefold. Number one, I need those regular weekly volunteers who have a set route. Every Monday, I do Swananoa. Every Tuesday, I do Fairview. Every Wednesday, I do Arden. They have that set schedule that they do every week. Well, when you have 200 plus volunteers, you can imagine that on any given day,
Right.
3 or 4 of them are on vacation. Another 2 or 3 might be experiencing car difficulty. Another 2 or 3 need to take care of something. Maybe there's an emergency situation that's come up and they got to take care of their mom or dad. I mean, there's just all a variety of things that arise that will keep a regular volunteer from doing their route on a regular basis. So we are really trying to build twofold. Here's the second part, a very strong substitute volunteer base. And what that means is we're looking for people who can commit to pretty much doing any route on any day as needed. This is someone that really has to be comfortable with driving or has great use of their GPS, has great familiarity with the area, and has a very flexible schedule. And then the third part would be we are really wanting to expand a grocery shopping service. We started this a couple of years ago because, again, if seniors have financial resources to grocery shop, or if they have SNAP benefits, that's our food stamp program, they may not have the ability to shop. So if we could offer that free grocery shopping service, we can help get more food into the home. And right now, that's currently being done by a staff person, and I'd like to expand it to utilize volunteers.
I'm thinking out loud, Debbie, how this must have been even more difficult. Like Meals on Wheels has been around how long in Asheville, Buncombe County?
In 2026, we'll
Yeah.
be celebrating 5 decades, 50 years.
So I'm just trying to imagine this. How was life before GPS?
Oh
Can you
my
imagine
gosh.
that? I mean, I can't even fathom that there was something called maps, I think that they used to call them, you know,
Yes,
and that people were, even then, 5 decades ago, they were delivering through Meals on Wheels to people's homes.
yes. And
It's,
we had route sheets. We still have these route sheets. And
yeah.
it will tell you from your pickup point, go to, and I mean, you were just following step-by-step instructions to get from, each senior's home, multiply that by numerous routes. It was quite an undertaking, staff-wise, to really man something like that. Thank goodness for GPS.
So back to the volunteers then. If somebody is interested in being a volunteer, first of all, what are you looking for in a volunteer?
What we want is someone who can commit to basically 2 hours once a week. And during that 2 hours, you can either have an assigned route that you do on an assigned day, and that's your regular route, or you could serve as that substitute volunteer and at least once a week, finding a place where you can sub for a regular route so that we aren't hammering trying to figure out, do we get frozens out the day before, or is it a staff person that's trying to get out and make those meal deliveries?
So you're looking for that person who put that time in. Um, how
Oh,
do you if somebody wants to sign up to be a volunteer, what do they do?
I just thought of something else that's really important, Blaine. If you are interested in being a volunteer and you can make the time commitment, there's also you use your own vehicle and you pay for your own gas. So it really is quite a commitment from an individual. You're going to use your car, use your gas, and you're going to take your time to make these meal deliveries to lovely, lovely seniors out in our community. So it's well worth it. It's very rewarding. And then you asked me another question.
But how does somebody sign up to be a volunteer?
How do you sign up? So we have a very easy sign up form on our website. You would go to www.mowabc.org, click on volunteer. There's a little bit of an explanation about what we need from volunteers, and then we have a very simple volunteer form. Once you complete that form, it comes right to our office. We will get you set up with our next volunteer training, which takes about 1 hour. We do it one-on-one, and then you'll be ready to get on your route and start making those deliveries.
Okay, if I can just ask you to repeat, if you would, Debbie, the website to sign up is what?
Absolutely. www.mowabc.org.
So we're looking for volunteers to help out on this, but times are changing, Debbie, and talk a little bit about the fact that I think a lot of people are concerned about, is this going to be in existence next year, 5 years from now, 10 years from now? And most specifically, you're reading about cutbacks in funding. How's that going to impact upon you folks?
Abs- Absolutely, yes. These last several months have been very uncertain as we kind of navigate the federal funding landscape. And we did hear that the Older Americans Act would be included in the next fiscal year's funding. And the Older Americans Act is the federal monies that are specific for senior nutrition programs like Meals on Wheels. So what we do feel secure then that we're being funded. What we do not know is for how long or for how much. And what I can share or say is that federal funding will be flat. It certainly will not increase. And all Meals on Wheels programs are a little different. For us, federal funding in our current year was about $200,000, and it would feed basically about 110 seniors. That counts for about 20% of our overall budget. So when you think about Meals on Wheels of Buncombe County, we are we're pretty safe in terms of we're not very dependent on federal funding, and we've done that on purpose. I mean, we really have tried to build a very diverse base of funding. So we had to because over the last 5.5 years, we've grown 50%. And federal funding isn't growing with us. As a matter of fact, it's either stagnant or it's going to be less. So we don't want to be in a position where we rely on federal funding to take care of our seniors.
So aside from federal funding, then where's the money come from?
So the other 80% of our funding comes from the generosity of our community, and that is in many forms. It is through grants, fundraisers, individuals who make donations, businesses who support us, um, faith-based organizations. We get a tremendous amount of support from many of our faith-based community partners. So yeah, 80% is the generosity of this community, 20% is federal funding. What I am concerned about is the social service programs that have been cut back or are not being funded. Things like Medicaid, the Healthy Opportunities Pilot, SNAP benefits, because those also help support not only seniors, but perhaps the families that are trying to care for seniors. And when those fundings are less, folks are going to start seeking other sources of help. And I believe that more and more families and seniors will start to turn to Meals on Wheels for that support.
You mentioned federal support. Do you folks get any city, county, state funding as well?
So the interesting thing about the federal funding, it is a combination of state and federal. Local Buncombe County funding, no, we do not get any support yeah.
Okay, well, ask and
Yeah.
answer. Let me ask you another question, Debbie. Just something you also lived through this past year. That you have all these volunteers and you have all these people needing food. Then you had a hurricane not too long ago. How did that impact you folks?
That was very challenging. So what happened for us is, the hurricane arrived, I believe it was Wednesday night. So that Thursday and Friday, we were not in the office at Meals on Wheels. But Monday, we knew we had to get in here and start figuring out what the game plan was going to be because there's 600 seniors who are depending on Meals on Wheels for their nutritional resource. And we're also the people checking in on them. We were very, very concerned about our seniors and what was going on. So we immediately pulled what staff was available to come in and start making calls to our seniors. And as you know, our phone lines were not working well. There was issues with Wi-Fi and trying to make connections with people. We couldn't operate our kitchen because our water system had been damaged, all of us, right? So we quickly pivoted to ordering frozen meals, and we made a plea out to our community to send us shelf-stable items that were easy to prepare. And we started packing grocery bags and delivering frozen meals. We asked for volunteer support because some of our volunteers were not able to respond like they normally had. So we opened up the doors to anybody who could show up on a regular basis and help us start getting out on the road, visiting these seniors, seeing who was displaced, seeing who was still home and okay, getting these pantry bags and frozen meals delivered, and making sure our seniors had the resources that they need. And I want to read you a quote from one of our clients
Right.
that shared this speaks so well to what was happening during that time. So this is from one of our seniors. She says, I was stuck in my apartment for 12 days without power. Frozen meals weren't going to do her a lot of good. It was so dark in my apartment, it felt like a cave. On the third day of darkness, a volunteer with Meals on Wheels showed up and handed me a bag of groceries. This was a lifeline for me and truly made life doable during that time. So that's what we tried to do. We tried to be a resource for every one of our seniors who needed us, and we brought to them whatever food we could that would work for their situation. We eventually, the water system was out for quite some time, and I don't know if you remember, but a lot of the restaurants were getting those big black tanks
Yeah, I do
getting
remember.
the potable water. We did the same thing. We had a very generous donor who helped us do all of that. We were getting potable water into our building and we started our kitchen operations at least 1 month later. Took us a month to get it all situated, but 1 month later, we were back to doing hot prepared meals. And the last thing I will add is we had a waiting list of over 100 people that transpired during this time. So, right after Hurricane Helene, we have added 3 new meal delivery routes to get those folks off a waiting list and getting them served.
Well, I didn't realize that. So right now, even, is there a waiting list to get into the program?
There is a waiting list.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yes, there's 40 individuals that are currently on our waiting list. And if you think about 47 meal delivery routes, there could be 1 or 2 people on a waiting list on a certain route. We look at that and we think, okay, we don't want anyone on a waiting list, but if the waiting list is small, they're most likely going to get into our service within a month, if not two. It's when you get a large population on your waiting list in one area. And right now for us, we have 10 people on a waiting list in the Leicester community. So that tells us we have a need for another meal delivery route, and we need to start planning how to make that happen.
Do any people pick up the meals itself at your headquarters there?
No, mainly because most of them are homebound,
Gotcha.
and well, homebound doesn't mean you don't drive at all. Most of them have very limited transportation capabilities. So they're really depending on us to bring the meals to them.
So the scary thing you mentioned that these 10 people, or it's like more than 10 people trying to get on list, what will help them get back on the list, or how do you determine who gets chosen next?
Oh, for our waiting list,
Yeah.
it's whoever went on the list first, second, third. It's in the order.
Okay. And so the criteria is if you have delivery people for that or the food for that, what's the limit? You mentioned there are people waiting to get in. What determines that there'll be less people? What can take more people?
Right. So each route can take a maximum of 16 seniors.
Gotcha.
So let's just assume the Leicester route currently has 16 people on that route, and I've got 10 people on a waiting list. If if 2 people come off of the Leicester service, let's just say, I mean, and this happens, folks do pass away. Sometimes they move in with family, or maybe it's time that they really do need the institutionalized care. So when those spots come open, then we take the first two, the person who was on the waiting list first then gets to move on to that route.
And so what determines if somebody calls your office tomorrow, so they'd be put on a waiting list? Is that what would happen typically?
It depends on what area.
Gotcha.
Not all of our routes have a waiting list. Matter of fact, it's probably less than half have a waiting list. It's just currently West Leicester is where we're seeing a larger concentration of seniors who need our program. And I think that's because more and more seniors are moving out to more rural communities. I'm going to suspect it's maybe lower rent, things like that. It's getting very expensive to live in apartments in Asheville. And so I think more and more seniors are really trying to find places to live that they can afford, and they're going to end up in more of our rural areas.
Okay, yeah, that's a good point, but unfortunately, it's the case.
Yes.
Asheville is people can't afford to live in Asheville too many times. And the sad thing, Debbie, they can't afford to live in Asheville, yet they work in Asheville. That
Yes.
something wrong with that program. You can't even live where you work, but it creates problems. Moving forward on this, then, Debbie, let me just ask one other thing. So you're looking for volunteers. I assume you're also looking for the community if they want to get involved and make a donation. You welcome that as well.
Absolutely. I mean, the only way, as I mentioned earlier, 80% of our funding comes from the generosity of the community. The only way we can continue to add routes and serve more people is if, number one, we have volunteers to make those deliveries, and number two, we have the funding to make it happen. And I really think the dollars and cents for Meals on Wheels makes sense. And what I mean by that is for $35, you can feed a senior for an entire week with our meals. My husband and I can't go out and eat
I
one
was
night
going to say that.
for
Yeah.
$35. So it's very economical. It's such a great investment. And as I mentioned earlier, $1,800 can feed a senior for an entire year. It costs way more than that to spend one week in assisted living
Yeah.
or in an institutionalized care.
And so exciting thing about this, it probably keeps some people from having to be institutionalized, or as long as you get one meal, and so it's hot meal they
It's a
get.
hot meal. Absolutely. It's a hot meal. And, it's really amazing to me to think about something as simple as making a home delivery with a meal and just checking in on a senior really prolongs their ability to live independently. We may not be able to keep them living independently forever, but that's the goal. If the health conditions continue to deteriorate or if they develop, Alzheimer's and things like that, it does make living independently more difficult. But for the most part, we can certainly prolong that ability to live independently safely.
Maybe moving forward into this coming year and beyond, anything in terms of goals of you or the organization that you're looking to accomplish over the next, say, 12 months?
In the wait. I think that's the biggest thing for us is to end the wait. We are a part of Meals on Wheels of America, which is the national organization that supports all the independent Meals on Wheels program. We are an independent Meals on Wheels program. I think there's about 5,000 of us. Meals on Wheels of America has been doing a lot of benchmarking and a lot of research with Meals on Wheels programs to figure out what are the biggest obstacles that you're facing. And for many of us, it is seniors are on a waiting list. And if a senior just shouldn't be on a waiting list. If you need food today, tomorrow, and to sit on a waiting list for a month, it just isn't good enough. It just isn't good enough for our seniors. So we are embarking on this In the Wait campaign, and we want to do whatever is feasible so that we can get more seniors fed and we reduce wait times or reduce that wait list altogether. And we're going to really look to Meals on Wheels of America to help us figure out how we're going to do that because we're all a little different in the way that we run and what our geographic needs are.
And the last time, in terms of getting involved in this, how long is I don't know, I didn't ask you this, but how long is the wait time typically? In other words, does everybody eventually get in, or some are going to wait longer than others?
The sad fact is some people die while they're on the waiting list. That's why it's really critical for us to address this problem as a community, as a nation. How do we stop? See, not that I don't know that we'll be able to stop senior hunger, but how do we address senior hunger and how do we stop waiting lists? Seniors who need food and care should get it. So that's the biggest initiative in that wait. Is that the question you asked me? Did I answer the question?
Exactly. And Debbie Sprouse, one last time, I'd like to thank you for being my guest today, but also the contact information. Best bet, you mentioned the one is the website. Is there also a phone number they can call you on?
Absolutely. I remember now what your question was. How long do most people
Right.
wait? It's anywhere from 1 to 3 months.
Okay.
We want it to be less than that. Yes, you can reach us by our phone number. It's 828-253-5286. That's our general phone number. You can certainly ask for me by name. I welcome any calls. I'd love to know how our community wants to help us end the wait for our community seniors.
And I'll ask you one more time to repeat that phone number. So
828 828 253 5286.
thank you. And also the website once again.
www.mowabc.org.
Okay. I'd like to thank you, Debbie Sprouse, Executive Director of Meals on Wheels for Asheville and Buncombe County, for being my guest today. Also, I'd like to thank my producer, Captain DeSetti, for helping out. And hopefully we'll bump into each other one of these days. Debbie, that'd be great.
Thank you so much, community.
Okay, thank you.